Spinach is one of those vegetables that keeps giving. You pick a handful and by the next week it is already coming back. I like that. You're not uprooting the whole thing, you're just taking what you need and letting the rest carry on. It is a quiet rhythm, but it suits me. Today I've picked just enough for a recipe that feels like a summer walk through Tuscany. Today I will be making gnudi, which are little dumplings with spinach, chard and ricotta. The word gnudi in Italian translates into naked in the English language. Naked because effectively what the gnudi are is the inside of ravioli, but without the pasta which encases them. They are a specialty from Tuscany and generally they are in the shape of an egg, but not as big as an egg, but also some people do them round. I'll briefly run you through the ingredients as this is a very simple and straightforward recipe and I've got pretty much everything in front of me. So you've seen me picking my chard and my spinach from the garden earlier. I've got 50 grams of Parmesan cheese, also got one egg, and 250 grams of ricotta, which I have actually drained. I've removed all of the liquid. A little nutmeg. This is a third of a glass of white wine. The recipe uses water, but I'll tell you a little story in a little while why I'm using wine. I've got some flour and also a little butter, and I will be also using a few leaves of sage, olive oil, salt and pepper. The initial process of this recipe is almost identical to the simple garlic greens dish I posted as part of this mini-series. So all I'm doing at the moment is removing the stems from my spinach and from my chard. And actually, my third episode, I will be showing you how I use the stems and I will be making a frittata so that in the spirit of resourcefulness, we don't waste anything. So I'll just finish cleaning them and then I'll show you what to do next. But I've actually already washed them and all I'm doing, as you can see, just removing the stems. And just like in the garlic greens recipe, I'm now adding some olive oils and a clove of garlic to a pan. And while the oil gets nice and hot, I'll just spread my garlic around so that it releases all of its beautiful flavor. And just like the simple garlic green recipe, I will add my spinach and chard. And this is where I'm deviating slightly from the traditional recipe. Instead of adding water, I'm adding a third of glass of white wine. Temperature is medium-high, so I'll turn it down to medium now, and I'll place the lid on, and they will reduce in volume considerably. And I will now explain why I'm deviating slightly from the original recipe. I had gnudi in Italy the very first time when Julie and I went on holiday for our 25th wedding anniversary to Venice. And we went to this little trattoria not far from the center of Venice, and they were advertising regional food. They had different regions every week, and when we stayed there, there was the time to have food from Tuscany. And we saw this gnudi being widely advertised, so we thought we'll try. And I have to be honest, when they came out, I wasn't very impressed by the look. They looked a little bit sad, and it's not until actually I took a mouthful that they completely silenced me because of their simplicity, but also the taste was absolutely incredible. So I asked the waiter what was in them, and he smiled and he said to me, well, there's spinach, there is ricotta, and a lot of patience for whoever is making them. But I have to disagree with him because actually you don't need a lot of patience. They're dead easy to make, not different to making meatballs actually. But then he bent over and he said to me, and add wine instead of water when you are blanching the greens, because it will make a big difference. And actually I've made them before since, and I have to say I've made them with water and I make them with wine. And with wine they make a big difference, considerably tastier. So they've been cooking with the lid on for about 3 minutes. I will now remove it and I will just go and give them a little turn around so that I cook them properly both sides. And I will turn the temperature up slightly so that I will start releasing some of this water and they will be done in about a couple of minutes. And here are my greens. They're cooked, but they are very hot and also very wet. So I've got a sieve here and a glass bowl. The first thing I'll do is to move them inside my sieve and they'll start draining. And I will try and lose some of the excess water in the process. Now there is a piece of garlic here, individual choices. I will put mine in because I love it, but you can choose to remove it if you wish. And while they are cooling down, I'll just give them an initial press so that I want them to be as dry as possible. So I will remove some of the liquid now and some later when I can safely handle them. So they've been cooling down for about 5 minutes and I've gone along and pressed as much as I can. Look, there is still some water coming out. I'm sure you can see from the camera. But I think I've done as much as I can with my spoon. But also they've cooled down slightly, so they're going to be safer for me now to touch with my hand. And that is the best way to actually remove the excess water, to just get them in your hand. They're a little bit warm, but bearable. And just squeeze as much as you can. And allow all of the excess liquid to go inside your bowl. Do not throw it away. I'll explain why in a moment. You might find that actually you could break them into 2 separate bowls, and then it might be easier for you to squeeze it. And although I think I pretty much, oh, there's still more. I'm almost there though. Look, really squeezing hard now. So that's bowl number 1. Let's do the second. And that is perfect. Number 2. If you look, they're nice and compact. Now here I've got also the excess water and wine from when I fried them. So I'll add it to my stock. And this is excellent vegetable stock. One of the recipes from this series is going to be risotto. And this is excellent for when I make the recipe. I think it's either the 4th or the 5th, I'm not sure, but I will keep it in the fridge. And before I go any further, I'll go along with my knife and I'll chop my spinach and chard into little pieces. I'm not going to mince it, just make it a little bit more manageable. Just little chunks like this. Literally no more than 10 seconds and you will end up with something which looks very similar to this. And I can start putting my gnudi together next. So here is a glass bowl. I'll pick all of my greens and go inside. Here is my ricotta, 250 grams. There is still a little water there, so I'm going to drain any excess left over. And I want it to be very, very dry, so there you go. That can go in. You can use any type of ricotta. This is supermarket ricotta made from cow's milk. But if you got access to sheep's milk ricotta, even better. I mentioned the egg earlier, so that can go in now. So just, oops, break it in, make a mess. There's a little bit left here. I'll take it out. Not the most skilled person at breaking eggs. There you go. Cheese next. This is Parmigiano Reggiano, as I said before, 50 grams, but also you can use pecorino if you like. Or you can also buy some mature hard Italian cheese these days on supermarkets. I've seen them on shelves. I've actually used it before myself. It's considerably cheaper and actually the taste itself is not too distant from Parmigiano, so it's a cheaper and more affordable option if you like. Now this is a bone of contention in Tuscany, nutmeg. Some people put it in, some people don't put it in. I put it in because it's absolutely delicious. But if you're not too keen on the nutmeg, you can leave it out. But if you like it, just be generous. I've got here half, I will be putting 1/4 in. But the nutmeg will complement really well with the ricotta and with the greens. And it's got a little bit of a tingy, sort of earthy flavour, and I think it's absolutely perfect. And before I add the flour, I'll just go in with my spoon to see what the consistency is like. The purpose of the flour is to give everything good density so that they do not fall apart when they cook. So I will be adding some, of course, but I want to see what it's like first. The reason why I'm saying that is because spinach or ricotta, depending on what you use, they're all different in terms of how much water they contain. So that gives me an idea of the initial consistency. I will start with a couple of the teaspoon, and this is just normal plain flour, by the way. You can use any flour. And let's have a look. I just have a little feel. This is still a bit too liquidy, so I think I'm going to add another couple. So that's number 3, and that is number 4. So 4 generous teaspoons of flour. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's considerably better. One more. Sorry, I did say that depending on what ingredients you're using, it will change. So 5 altogether now. And that is perfect. One last ingredient which I nearly forgot is pepper, and I will add it now. So there we go. And I will give them one final mix and I'll be ready to make gnudi. Now if you take your time and you follow this process, you will find that this is effortless. I'm going to show you what I do in my case. I've got a little bowl of water and I've got everything in front of me, of course. So left hand goes in the water, right hand goes in the water. Then I'll go along here and I'll pick up some of my paste, whatever size you want to make them, and very gently just make a little meatball, and then you will end up with a little bit of a squishy ball, but do it in the shape of an egg, as I said before, and then you put it on your plate, and that is a gnudi done. And just carry on really. And because you go wet hands, you'll find that you will not get sticky hands. So make them in a shape of a ball first, and then make like a little oval like this. You will find that as you make them, you will get faster and faster. They're very, very simple and easy to do. And do not worry, I'm not going to be filming me making all of the gnudis. I will see you in a little while once they're all done. And here they are, look, I've made 19 altogether. They are all roughly of similar size. So the next job is to strengthen them up, otherwise they will potentially fall apart while you cook them. So I'm going to add a little flour on another plate over here, a couple of spoons to start with. And I'll pick one up and very gently I'll move it here and I'll roll it in my flour, like this. And that will act a little bit like glue. And I'll roll it a little bit. I'll use it as an opportunity to give a little bit more of a gnudi shape, and then it can go back on its place. And I'll carry on with all of them, and then next job is to cook them. By the way, if you're looking for speed, what you can do is just this, and as well as shaking any excess flour, they will take a proper shape for the gnudi, and they're done. Look, I'll show you again. Here's another one. I'll just gently roll it, put some flour all over it, and then I'll just roll it from my left hand to my right hand and vice versa, and then it will effectively acquire that perfect shape. So there you go, something you learn as you make them. If you have cooked gnocchi before, this is actually a very, very similar process. I'm waiting for my water to boil, so before I forget, I add some salt, just like if you're doing gnocchi. By the way, I've actually left these to gently harden up for about 15 minutes. And also, I should have said earlier that this is the sort of thing that you can prepare the night before for the day after, even better, because they will be a little bit harder, but obviously put a little cling film on top and place them in the fridge if you make them the day before, and then all you need to do the day after, of course, is cook them. In the meantime, as the gnudi will only take about 3 to 4 minutes to cook, I'll get my base ready, and this is incredibly simple, and you might have actually done it with ravioli before, but all you need is a generous knob of butter, and I will use the same pan that I used earlier for the spinach and the chard. That is because, of course, all of the flavor from the garlic and the greens is still there. And the butter is already beginning to melt, so I'm going to add now a few leaves of sage. Quantity is entirely up to you, but this is a very simple sauce, if you can call it sauce. Actually, the sage is a key ingredient, so be a little bit more generous. Maybe, I don't know, half a dozen will be enough for now. And I'll turn this on medium-low so that it doesn't burn, while I turn the temperature up of my water so that I can put the gnudi in. And there it goes, the water is finally boiling, so I'll start adding my gnudi one by one. I'm making sure that I space them so that as they land, they do not go on top of one another. There is a danger that they could get stuck. And unlike pasta, you will not be overcooking these, because if you think about it, it's mostly vegetables, egg and cheese. It's a matter of making sure that they cook, and like gnocchi, they will float once they're ready. And here they are, look, just like clockwork, within 3 minutes they're beginning to float. So I'm gonna use a spoon which has got a few holes, and I'll start moving them inside my pan with the butter and the sage. And as they cook, they harden up, of course, even more, so they are considerably easier to handle, and there isn't a danger that they fall apart anymore. And now that the gnudi are with the sage and the butter, it's just a matter of giving them a good toss, and they will absorb the beautiful flavor from the butter and from the sage. Temperature is medium-high, number 8 at the moment, so I will leave them for about 2 or 3 minutes until I'm satisfied that they are properly cooked and absorbed all of the flavor. And in no time at all, they're ready. Here they are, look, they smell absolutely wonderful. So to serve them up, I need my spoon. I'm not sure what I've done with it. I'll go and find it. I'm having one of those moments. So here it is. And the typical presentation is really entirely up to you, but this is how they were served to me back in Venice. So I'll just put a few on the plate, and I'll put one in the middle, and I'll go ahead and I'll test some to see what it's like. And they should actually just be very simple to cut. You can see that they're nice and soft, but they're firm, and they're absolutely perfect. They're delicious, honestly. They feel really light and full of flavor. Beautiful. Make them and you will know what I mean. So next episode I'll be making the frittata with the stems from the chard and the spinach. At some point we'll be making the risotto, and I've got a little surprise for the very last one. Thank you for watching, and let me know if you try them. Ciao ciao, see you later.